All right, good morning. I would like to welcome everyone to the Descendants of the Ocoee Massacres, honoring their ancestors' tribute as we pay homage to the families of those lost during the horrific events of 1920. Last night, our local ABC affiliate, WFTV, presented an excellent documentary that brought new exposure to present-day knowledge about the violent, racist past of our county related to the lynching of African Americans who dared to exercise their right to vote in the city of Ocoee. As we begin our program, I would like to take a moment to recognize a few descendants of the victims represented here today, along with the elected officials who have joined us. We have first Ms. Naris and Nita Spicer, here representing the Hickey family. Would you stand and just be recognized at this time? Mr. L. Carl Devine is here on behalf of the Williams and Eason families. Ms. Gladys Franks Bell is here representing the Franks family. And Ms. Sharon McWhite and Ms. Jacqueline Blaylock are here on behalf of the Perry family, along with Ms. Pam Grady with the July Perry Foundation. In addition, please allow me to also recognize those family members who could not be here with us physically, but are attending virtually via our Orange TV and YouTube networks. Ms. Camilla Wilson Barnes is joining us virtually on behalf of the Hamilton family. Thank you to the survivor families for attending today. We will be hearing from the families shortly. To all of the elected officials that have joined us today, please stand and be recognized at this time. In just a few minutes, I will ask Mayor Dyer of the City of Orlando and Mayor Rusty Johnson with the City of Ocoee to provide official remarks. I would also like to acknowledge the Orange County Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Initiative members that are able to join us today as they serve as co-hosts of this event. Will the members please stand? This is a day of remembrance and commemoration of those who fought for a basic but sometimes denied act of democracy and freedom, the right to vote. Some fought for their right to vote, in turn lost their homes and livelihood. Some paid the ultimate sacrifice with the loss of their lives during the Ocoee Massacre that occurred on November the 2nd, 1920. Many of us stood in this very place on June the 21st of last year in honor of Mr. July Perry. We placed a marker here in recognition of his life and what he stood against. I stated then, and I'm restating now, I had no illusions or delusions that anything that we did then, or furthermore, today, will atone for the atrocities done to July Perry 100 years ago. History tells us that numerous government officials played a role in this injustice. They had titles like Orlando Police Chief, Orange County Sheriff. Some held the titles that I've held. How profound it is that I stand before you today on the eve of the 2020 presidential election, standing as the first African-American police chief in Orlando, the first African-American elected sheriff of Orange County, and now the first African-American elected Orange County mayor. I humbly stand here because of the fight that was fought by people like Daniel and Carrie Franks, Jack and Annie Hamilton, John and Lucy Hickey, Julius, July and Estelle Perry, John and Roxy Williams, and James and Anna Eason. It is because of their sacrifice and others that we are able to come together in unity today. So here we are, 100 years later, on November the 2nd, 2020, the day before an election that could change the trajectory of our entire nation by honoring those who fought and lost life and limb for this very moment. Rhetorically, I ask, why? Why must every person who can vote, vote during this election? Why must you continue to vote after tomorrow's election? I suggest that because of what happened in 1920, and perhaps because of what is happening across America today. I mean, when there are those who believe that we are living in a divided nation, where many feel disenfranchised, when we are living in a nation where our young adults believe it necessary to ignite a Black Lives Matter movement, when there are calls for criminal justice reform. I still believe in the promise of the American dream. Every boy or girl deserves to reach their full potential, regardless of their race, gender, or socioeconomic status. We must continue to exercise our right to vote and elect leaders who will unite us and not divide us. No matter what happens tomorrow, as a result of the election, we must be willing to get into good trouble. As the late Congressman John Lewis would say, in order to make the world a better place. We can build a better community by creating a culture of innovation, collaboration, and inclusion. We must continue to move our community and country beyond words into action, like those of the ancestors of the families represented here today. I will conclude my introductory remarks with a quote from the great orator, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. He said these words: "Voting is foundational for the political action. Voting is not only the component for social change, but it is critical for changing the trajectory of our nation." That time is now. If not now, then when? If not us, then who? We are the ones who can be the change in the world around us. We are the ones who could be the change in the world around us. At this time, I will call up Mayor Buddy Dyer to provide remarks, and then Ocoee Mayor Rusty Johnson will follow with his remarks. Mayor Buddy Dyer.
Thank you, Mayor Demings, and I'm honored to be here this morning to join you and the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Initiative and everybody that's here on this somber day. I want to recognize the members of the Orlando City Council who are with us today. I see Commissioner Stewart, Commissioner Sheehan, and Commissioner Hill. It's so important that as a community we pause to recognize the violence and the hatred and the terror that Black residents in West Orange County faced 100 years ago this week. As we mark this dark moment in Central Florida's history, We're bringing light to the stories of the residents who were killed or injured, forced to leave their homes, had their property taken from them for simply trying to exercise their right to vote. At the same time, we're acknowledging the impact that these horrific acts had over the decades on our community and the lives of the family members, and some of them are here today. And that's why it's critical for us to have events like this, for the city of Ocoee to have events like this, for the History Center to have its moving exhibit, which I was able to visit a few days ago. Fantastic exhibit. I want to thank Michael Perkins and Pam Schwartz and the entire History Center team for their tireless efforts to help tell the story. And it's so important that our children learn about what happened 100 years ago so that we can ensure that hateful, inhumane acts never occur again. I'm grateful for the roles that Senator Bracey and Representative Brown have made in making sure that young residents statewide learn about this tragedy. And as we continue our collective work towards justice, this 100-year remembrance serves as a reminder of the injustices that black residents have endured in the United States and right here in Central Florida. To the descendants here today, I hope you can take solace in knowing that our community is honoring your ancestors by using this moment to recommit to the work to ensure that all residents are treated equally, are equally protected, and have equitable opportunities, something that sadly black residents in West Orange County did not have 100 years ago. Thank you so much.
Good morning. Honored guests, glad to be here today. Thanks for the invite. I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I would like to thank Orange County Mayor Jerry Demings for the opportunity to speak and also for being such a kind professional colleague over the years. Mayor Demings embodies the willingness to work together that it will take to bring peace and positive change in these times we live in. I also want to invite all of you to come out to Ocoee and participate in our events that are going on this week to commemorate and reflect on what happened in 1920. The entire program of events on our website and social media. Ocoee is a great city with a great quality of life. We have made many huge strides to overcome a reputation marked by the horrible events that happened in 1920. We have advanced way beyond those times, but there is more to do. I have personally been blessed to take part in helping to bring awareness and begin reconciliation process in Ocoee. I was proud to read the proclamation declaring November the 2nd a day of remembrance for those who lost their lives that day through an act of domestic terror. This proclamation came after years of hard work by our late Mayor Lester Dabbs, our Human Relations Diversity Board, members of our commission, and our community. When I used to get questioned about the events of 1920, I would get angry. Angry because that is not the place Ocoee is today. Angry because that is not who I am. And I will tell you that these 3 years ago, when members of our diversity board traveled to Montgomery, Alabama, I felt anger again. Anger towards those who had such hatred in their hearts they would inflict such horrors upon black Americans during that period in our history. If there is anyone who has not been to Montgomery, Alabama, you need to go to Legacy Museum. I would highly recommend it. It is life-changing. I know it was for me. It made me realize that just how these descendants must feel about what happened to their family members 100 years ago. I have never walked a mile in the shoes of a man persecuted based on the color of his skin. I haven't had to try and explain to a child why something happened to him because of the color of his skin. But I can do something. I can try harder every day to be more inclusive, to be conscious of how I say things, to stand up when someone is wronged. We are all created equal. We need to work together to be examples of a community where not only are we created equal, but most importantly, treated that way. We have an opportunity to be an example. I am challenging every citizen in Ocoee and Orange County to lead by example and treat others the way we want to be treated and be a place where we can refuse to stop until we have reached our goal as equals. Thank you. Good morning.
Thank you to Mayor Rusty Johnson and to Mayor Dyer. I think it is also appropriate today to recognize specifically the first elected African American in the city of Ocoee, Mr. George Oliver. And we also have Mr. Larry Brinson serving, two African Americans serving in the city of Ocoee today. It is my pleasure at this time to introduce several of the family members who will come forward and offer a few comments. Let me kind of read them in order. First, we'll have Ms. Nerese Spicer, who is the great-grandniece of John and Lucy Hickey. She'll be followed by Mr. J. Carl Devine, the grandson of John and Roxy Williams, and the great-grandnephew of James and Anna Eason. Then Miss Gladys Franks Bell, the granddaughter of Daniel and Carrie Franks, the daughter of Richard Allen Franks, the great-grandniece of July and Estelle Perry. Then we'll have Miss Jacqueline Perry Blaylock, the great-grandniece of July and Estelle Perry. And then Miss Pamela Swartz with the History Center will provide the remarks on behalf of Camilla Wilson Barnes, the great-granddaughter of Jack and Annie Hamilton. Please come forward in that order.
Good morning. I'd like to thank Mayor Demings and Pam Schwartz and everyone who contributed their time and resources to all of these commemorative events. I am the great-granddaughter of John and Lucy Hickey, and I did prepare a speech, but I'm going to throw the speech away and just speak from the heart. My great-grandparents were entrepreneurs and landowners in Ocoee, and then after the Election Day Massacre, they ended up resettling in Apopka, Florida. So in Apopka, Florida, they resettled, they were able to purchase land again and to attempt to rebuild the wealth that was lost and stolen. They were people of integrity, they were honest people, they valued ownership, they valued family. And I can only imagine how they would feel today knowing that everything that they endured is now being brought to light, and to know that their truth is being told and acknowledged. I think that we are approaching a pivotal moment in this country again, and even though it's 100 years later, there are still wounds to be healed and there are still things that need to be addressed. So if I can just leave everyone with one thought, one feeling, is to have the heart to be empathetic and to show empathy in everything that you do, to have the courage to be fearless, and to just have the desire to create change. Thank you.
Hello, I am J. Carl Devine. I'm the grandson of John and Roxy Williams and the great nephew of James and Anna Eason. My grandparents moved from Georgia to Ocoee to start a new and better life. My granddad was a minister. They burned his church, burned their homes, ran them out of Ocoee. My grandparents had to go to Webster, from Webster to Lakeland, Groveland, and Arcadia. I still carry the emotional pain that I experienced from listening to them. Most of my life, growing up, I heard about Ocoee. They never got over the fact that people ran them off their property, and took their land from them. And it's an emotional stain that we still experience because we were close to it. We weren't there, but we experienced that pain for a long time, and we still do. And I appreciate the commemorations. I appreciate the celebrations. But let's not forget the reparations. Thank you.
Good morning. Maybe I better move my mask. That's better. I just have a few words of gratitude. I would like to thank everyone who has spent tireless hours working on research pertaining to the history of my great-grand-uncle July Perry. Many of you have done lots of interviews to get to the truth about the 1920 Ocoee Massacre. You have made many presentations, displays, and installed a beautiful marker so that everyone could hear, read, and see what went on within the past 100 years. I, for one, would like to see reparation for the Ocoee Massacre descendants. If I may, I have a book out. I don't know whether I should say this. I have a book out entitled Visions Through My Father's Eyes, and you can find that on www.gladysbell.com, and I thank all of you.
Good morning. How is everybody? I'm going to need y'all to talk back to me. Good morning. All right now. First of all, I want to say thank you to each and every one in their respective places that have allowed for this tribute to occur. I am Jacqueline Perry Blaylock. I am the great niece of the Honorable Julius July Perry, a man that knew and understood the value of voting in 1920. I am his legacy, and some of you are a part of his legacy as well. We must continue to seek justice for the unjust by expressing and utilizing our rights to vote. Our ancestors, some of all of you who fought, who died for that right. We must continue for our future generations so that they understand the importance of utilizing and exercising their right to vote as well. We all have heard the stories of what had occurred, but now we must move forward. It is a great honor to be here and to participate on this day as we honor our ancestors. But I want you to understand something. If you truly, truly want to honor your ancestors, vote. Vote in your county elections, your city elections, your local government elections, and more importantly, the national elections. If we want to see a change that we are all discussing and talking about, remember, we have to protect that right to vote that our ancestors died for. And although some of them may stay silent, this new generation, we're going to speak forcefully. So do what is necessary to honor your ancestors that I won't say willingly gave their lives, but lost their lives for that right to vote. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is LD Robinson, and I am here representing the Hamater family on this very special day. I will be reading a letter from Mrs. Camilla Wilson Barnes. To Orange County, Florida Mayor Jerry L. Demings, Ms. Rhonda Robinson, Special Assistant to the Mayor, and his entire staff. The Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Initiative, and the Orange County Regional History Center and its staff. A special recognition to Chief Curator Ms. Pamela Schwartz of the Yesterday, This Was Home, the Ocoee Massacre of 1920 exhibit. On behalf of the Jack and Annie Hamater family, their children Rosa, Hattie, and Lafayette, and Matilda Smith, who were survivors of the 1920 Ocoee, Florida Voting Day Massacre, I am Camilla Wilson Barnes, a great-great-granddaughter and direct descendant of Jack and Annie. I want to thank you so very much for your recognition of the Ocoee Massacre and declaring November the 2nd, 2020 as Descendants of the Ocoee Massacre, honoring the Ancestors Day in Orange County. I'm very honored to learn of the events occurring because of my great-great-grandma Hamater's wise actions. I only wish she and Grandpa Hamater were here to witness these events. After all, it is because of their wise decision to write for help and clever actions to hide the letter amongst kumquats that we are celebrating today. It's my deepest desire to be present to speak to you personally, but the necessary precautions with protecting my health from COVID-19 will not allow it. Again, I will say, it was hard, it was horrible, and it was sad. And then it taught us strength, which we live and exercise today. Ms. Camilla Wilson Barnes, thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Pam Schwartz. I'm the Chief Curator of the Orange County Regional History Center. I just want to thank all of the families who went out of their way to come today and took a few moments to speak to you all. It really is their story to tell. I'm honored to be here with you all, especially those descendants. I do want to just take a chance again to recognize all of those joining us virtually, those who could not be here but so wish that they were. For 100 years, the story of the Ocoee Massacre has gone largely untold. Just 3 years ago, the History Center embarked on a journey to uncover that story. From this effort, our most exhibition was crafted. Yesterday, This Was Home, the Ocoee Massacre of 1920. When we began, there was little with which to work. We made the decision to broaden the scope of the content. An event like this massacre doesn't happen in a vacuum. It isn't isolated. It isn't singular in nature. It had been hundreds of years in the making, an intricate system crafted and put to work in a most horrific fashion. This exhibition follows a narrative arc from the roots of enslavement in Florida soil into the 1500s through the Ocoee Massacre and on up to the Black Lives Matter movement today. Through intensive original research, our staff pursued the truth, conducting genealogical investigation, extensively mapping land deeds and searching for these families, some of which we've found and are here with us now. On November 2nd, 1920, exactly 100 years ago today, a century ago, a black man named Moses Norman attempted to vote in his hometown of Ocoee and was turned away. What resulted was the destruction of a black community so many had worked for decades and decades to build. Every black person, individual, and family living in Ocoee lost something that night. Some their possessions, their homes, some their land, and others, like July Perry, and at least 3 others, paid the ultimate sacrifice, their lives. The History Center, and our staff recognizes more today than it ever has that the job of a museum is not just to look back. It's to collect today for tomorrow, and all of these stories with us. There have been times, many times, that there have been stories I or we as an institution have wanted to tell, but nobody had collected the material. This is one of those events. So we became committed to this story, to taking on every lead, and to leaving no stone unturned. Even this afternoon, we will record oral histories with more of the descendants of these brave survivors of the massacre. What better way for all of you, the descendants, to honor your ancestors than to tell their story, to tell your story, to help others feel the same courage your family had, to help them learn, grow, and understand on how to make a better tomorrow. This story, the story of the Ocoee Massacre, is not just one for the Black residents of Ocoee and for their descendants. This is a story for all Americans, about all Americans. And the more people who hear about this event and others like it, the more Americans who can start to try to understand the past, their commitment and the responsibilities that we hold today, understand how we're all shaped by race, and this will give us the kind of foundation that we need to move forward and to affect change. We invite everybody to the first step that we felt we could take towards change: learning. Take the time. Visit our landmark exhibition. Read about this event, whether it's here or at home on your couch. It is only once we have learned about what has come before that we can have constructive conversations towards building a better future. Again, I would like to thank all of those who came before us, groups like the Democracy Forum that was starting this research back in the 90s and the 2000s. This exhibit would not have been possible without their first really starting to uncover this event. I would like to thank each of the families who have made this exhibition possible through taking the time to share their stories with us. It is a story we hope that we have done some amount of justice to, and one that we promise to preserve for generations to come. Thank you to the descendants of Jack and Annie Hameter, John and Lucy Hickey, Daniel and Carrie Franks, James and Anna Eason, John and Roxy Williams, July and Estelle Perry, and to all of those families whose descendants we have yet to meet. May those ancestors rest in power, knowing their stories are continuing and finally starting to be told. Thank you all so much for coming. I'd like to turn it back over to Mayor Demings for the final words.
Let me just say thank you to Pam Schwartz and her entire team here at the History Center and others who have helped to document the rich history of Orange County, as well as this historic story about a massacre that happened 100 years ago today. So it is my esteemed privilege to read the proclamation that is going to be presented to each of the families who are present here today. The proclamation reads, whereas the Eason, Franks, Hameter, Hickey, Perry, and Williams families were longtime residents of Orange County and the city of Ocoee, Florida, and whereas these families were faithful and dedicated residents of their community and served as activists fighting for basic human rights that should have been bestowed to all, and whereas their active civic involvement and advocacy had a profound impact on the lives they fought for in Orange County and the city of Ocoee, and whereas through their bravery and passion for progression in their community, they encourage young African Americans to seek higher education and stand up for their rights as first-class citizens. And whereas the Easons, Franks, Hameters, Hickeys, Perrys, and Williams families were admired and revered by many in their community as brave civil rights leaders and activists for change before there was a civil rights movement. And whereas each of these families provided leadership, guidance, devoted service, and outstanding contributions to Orange County and the city of Ocoee. And whereas on November the 2nd, 1920, these families fought for the right to vote and in turn lost their homes and livelihood. Some paid the ultimate sacrifice with the loss of their lives. Now, therefore, I, Jerry L. Demings, by virtue of the authority vested in me as Orange County Mayor, do hereby proclaim Monday, November the 2nd, 2020, as Descendants of the Ocoee Massacre, honoring their ancestors' day in Orange County, Florida, done and ordered this second day of November 2020. I'm going to ask Mayor Rusty Johnson and Mayor Buddy Dyer to join me down in front of the stage, and we will ask our families to come forward to receive the proclamations. We'll ask our staff to assist us with this process. Again, let me thank all of you for joining us here today. I would invite all of you, if you have not had the opportunity to go in to see the exhibit, we encourage you to see the exhibit today. Again, to Mayor Rusty Johnson of the city of Ocoee, thank you for being here. To Mayor Buddy Dyer, thank you for being here. To all of our elected officials, thank you for joining us today. Thank you to all of you for being here. Please join me in giving our families another round of applause for being here today. Thank you for the sacrifice of your loved ones. God bless you all, and may God bless these great United States of America.